Hi, welcome back to Getting Motivated to Learn at Home, Part 4. And today we're going to talk specifically about tips and things parents can do to support their child to feel more motivated to learn at home. And then we'll also talk about what to do when more help is needed. So if you've been listening to this series and you feel like some of these tips and strategies you've already tried and things just aren't working out so well for you, or you're requiring more support or the support of a mental health professional, we'll talk about how to access that. So, as a parent, you've noticed your teens may be struggling to remain engaged with their online learning or to stay motivated to work from home. And so, in their typical learning environment, they may have really benefited from the structure and support that they received in the classroom with their teacher, as well as the positive reinforcement of working alongside their peers who are also taking action to engage with their learning. So lots is changed in that way. And so it might be important for you to engage in a discussion with your child about what would help them to what sorts of things could be put in place at home that would help them to feel more motivated to do their learning in ways or things that might have helped them when they were physically in a school building, and what you could do at home. And certainly watching part 1, 2, and 3 of this series would be helpful for them to get an idea of what sorts of things might work for them. So if your child is reporting that they're just not motivated, or they just aren't, they're doing everything that they can, but they're just not getting enough done for schoolwork, it might be important or helpful for you to point out what you've observed about where your child is spending their time, and particularly where your child may be losing time. So if something like video games or the cell phone with social media might be coming into play in terms of how they're spending a lot of their time, given that they are at home, and that may have been a part of their typical home routine, it would be important for you to collaborate with your child for what they can do to limit those distractions, and what can be done at home to limit those distractions, and what kinds of things you could put in place so that they're no longer getting in the way of their engagement and with their learning. So a really good tip alongside that would be, if you are working from home or you are at home with them, you can model a lot of the behavior that you want to see from them when it comes to being engaged in your work and them engaged in their learning. So you can lead by example by completing a to-do list. And if you were a part of our part 2, you would have learned about the importance of planning and time management. And so if you could engage in a discussion with your child about the kinds of things on your daily task list, what's on their daily task list, and then be a support to them to make sure they get everything, sort of that they are accountable to somebody, that they get what's done on their task list complete, and then you as well. That could be a fun way to engage with your child. You could also plan to stay off social media or some of the other distractions during your set work hours in a way that is expected of them for when they're learning at home. And if possible, you would establish a workspace that's close enough to your child or children that you can check in on them, but that it doesn't feel like you're micromanaging them. So in an ideal scenario, you would be close enough to provide support as needed, or to help support them to eliminate distractions or stay accountable to their daily task list, but not so close that it feels like you're now maybe fighting over kind of how your child is spending their time, or how engaged they are in their learning. A really important thing would also be being able to model the importance of taking breaks. So in part 2, we talked about how you can actually plan for breaks within your day. It's really important to plan for breaks and to actually manage your time in a way that you've scheduled breaks. And so if you happen to be in a scenario where you can take the same breaks as your child, you could actually spend time together. So you can do things like eat meals together, get outside for exercise together. And so just keep in mind that stepping away from your computer and from your devices is really helpful for both you and your child to refocus and to re-energize throughout your day. Sorry. There we go. And so another tip that's really important is to stick to a routine. So wake up, get dressed, have breakfast kind of at the same time every day as much as you can. and decide where everyone can do their work most effectively. So in part one, we talked about sort of setting up your learning environment, and that can be really important and something that you can do as well as to support your children to do or your child to do. If you have if there's more than one of you at home either working and learning, it can be really important to list everybody's learning and work schedules for the day in the household. And this is something that's visible to everybody. And this is what can help you to actually work together to, again, stay on task, and then also to schedule breaks together and meals, exercise, things like that. As much as you can, have food available for lunches and snacks throughout the day, so that you can encourage breaks and also keep energy levels up. Have dinner together as a family if that's part of your normal routine, and discuss your day. So just because you're not leaving the house doesn't mean you don't have all kinds of fun things to share with your family about how you spent your time, even when learning from home or working from home. And then schedule in time to spend together in the evening. So playing games, reading together, or watching a movie. These are things you can do as a family to stay motivated, engaged, and kind of get through this challenging time at home. And as much as possible, stick to regular bedtime routines. So if you had a bedtime routine that worked for you during a time where you were going to work or school in person, it might be important to actually check in and see what worked about that routine, what you liked about it, and how you can be consistent now. And if sleep is something you have more interest in, certainly check out part 3 of the series on sleep. This is something that I think is really important and I care a whole lot about, which is making space for emotions and also making time for connection. So it's really normal for your child to feel angry, anxious, and sad about some of the changes that are going on. And so we can accept that these feelings are valid and they can feel really intense. So you can help your child to cope with these emotions, things like talking it out, whether with you, a friend, or with a mental health professional, which we'll talk about more later on in this section of the presentation. Journaling can be really important, or writing it down, and exercise as well. And when it comes to dealing with stress, especially school-related stress, it's really important to recognize that you can be a helpful figure for your child, especially when your child's struggling with getting motivated or getting started on a task, because getting started on the task is oftentimes the most overwhelming part. Students will say things like, I don't know where to begin. I don't know what's expected of me. It's way too much. I don't have enough time for this. So these are things where you can actually help your child. And if you go back to part 2, we learned about planning and time management and really breaking down big tasks into smaller actionable items. So you can help your child to do this, so you can review their list of actionable items with them. Reasonably have a discussion about what a reasonable amount of time is to spend on the task, and actually working physically with them, alongside them, to support them. So it doesn't mean doing it for them, but just being with them while they get started. What you might find, and we talked about this in part 1 in terms of building momentum and getting started on a task, it can sometimes take as little as 5 minutes to get started. So big upsets and stress can actually waste a lot of time when it comes to completing a task. So if we can minimize that by working alongside your child, helping them to get started, and being available to provide encouragement and support is really important. Okay. Make room for social connection by encouraging your child to video chat with their friends. They could do this through scheduled lunch breaks or snack breaks, or a certain time in their day. And then also spend time together. So we talked about kind of learning alongside and working alongside your child, but even taking your breaks together, spending time to decompress together. And above all, remember to practice patience and compassion toward your child and toward yourself during this really difficult time. Okay. And now is a really good time to get in kind of this next topic, which is what to do when you feel like more help is needed, where to go. So I've introduced myself as the school social worker at Sandwich Secondary School. So I work for the Greater Essex County District School Board, and I have several schools that I service, and each school within the school board is aligned with a school social worker and attendance counselor. So you can certainly connect with your administrator at your school, your principal, vice principal, or your guidance counselors to find out about how you can access social work services for your child. It might even be something where you have some questions and you'd like to talk to the social worker about your child, and that's certainly appropriate. There are some things that are really important to keep in mind, which is that if there are concerns about immediate safety for your child, something that just can't wait, it's really important to call 911 or present to the emergency department at Windsor Regional Hospital. And you would go to Met Campus if your child is under the age of 16. So 15 and under. And if your child is 16 and up, you would take them to OLET campus emergency room, or if you're out in the county, it would be Erie Shores Healthcare in Leamington. So this would be an option for you if you're concerned for imminent safety, okay? There's also walk-in mental health support. We have our Crisis and Mental Wellness Center, and I've listed the address and age of service here, as well as the hours. There's also Regional Children's Center, and it typically would have been a walk-in service, and right now what they're doing is they're taking phone calls, and I've listed the number there. And based on your circumstance, they would have a discussion with you about what it would be like to get to access services from them during this time. Okay. There's also wonderful telephone support through Kids Help Phone, and you'll see there's several options for accessing support at Kids Help Phone, whether it be phone, telephone through the app, or by texting Connect. So the website's a great place to go if you have more questions about that. There's also the Community Crisis Center here in our community, and there is the phone number. It is a 24-hour telephone crisis support line. Okay. There are more options. So you might begin by scheduling an appointment with your family physician. If you don't have a family physician, your child doesn't have a family physician, you can visit ecms.org to find a list of doctors who are accepting new patients. If you have financial resources or benefits through your workplace employee assistance plan, you could access a mental health worker using that. There's also services, many services free of charge in our community, like Regional Children's Center, which I just spoke about, Teen Health Center in Maryvale, Adolescent and Family Services. And you can find more information about those services and other mental health services on the board's website in the Mental Health and Wellbeing section. Okay, and so that's all for me. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. And if you would like to get in touch with your school social worker, just remember you would do that through your school's administration or guidance. Take care.